Ever wondered what happens when a company underestimates an employee's influence? Stick around as I share how being fired for not being a team player led to the most satisfying corporate exodus of my career. Hey there. If you enjoy workplace revenge stories that show the real consequences of poor management, hit that subscribe button and join me for more true stories from the corporate battlefield. It was a Friday afternoon when Sarah, our HR director, asked me to stop by her office before leaving for the weekend. Her tone was oddly formal, a stark contrast to our usually friendly interactions. As I walked down the hallway of Meridian Technologies, the tech firm where I'd spent the last 4 years building the most efficient development team in the company's history, I had an uneasy feeling in my stomach. Sarah wasn't alone. Mark, our new VP of Operations, who had joined the company just 6 months prior, sat beside her with a manila folder on his lap. His expression was a practiced mix of professional concern and detachment, the kind of look executives perfect for moments exactly like this. "Please have a seat," Sarah said, gesturing to the chair across from them. I sat down, straightening my back instinctively, preparing for whatever was coming. Mark cleared his throat. "We've been evaluating the structure of our development department, and we've decided to move in a different direction." I nodded slowly, already knowing where this was heading. "Your technical skills are excellent," he continued, "but we need leaders who align with our collaborative culture. The feedback we've received suggests you tend to operate independently rather than integrating with the broader company objectives." Sarah jumped in, her voice softening the blow. "What Mark is saying is that there seems to be a disconnect between your management style and the team player mentality we're trying to foster here at Meridian." I almost laughed. My team of 12 developers had delivered 3 major projects ahead of schedule in the past year alone. Our client satisfaction ratings were the highest in the company. But I knew what this was really about. 3 weeks earlier, I had vocally opposed Mark's decision to outsource part of our development work to cut costs. I had data showing it would compromise quality and ultimately cost more in the long run. I had presented this information in a leadership meeting, complete with projections and case studies from our industry. Mark had been visibly annoyed, especially when several other department heads voiced agreement with my assessment. The meeting ended with Mark saying he would take it under advisement, but the cold shoulder I received afterward told me all I needed to know. Now here we were, with Mark using corporate speak to disguise what was essentially retaliation. "We'll be providing a severance package of 3 months' salary," Sarah explained, sliding a document across the desk. "Your health benefits will continue through that period. We'll need you to turn in your company laptop and badge before you leave today." I took the paper without reading it. "May I ask who will be leading my team now?" Mark smiled slightly. "We're promoting Kevin to interim lead. We believe his collaborative approach will better serve the department's integration with our strategic vision." Kevin was a competent developer, but had only been with the company for 8 months. He was also notoriously agreeable to anything management suggested. A yes man in every sense of the word. I nodded again, maintaining my composure. "I understand. I'll need about an hour to gather my things and hand off any immediate concerns to Kevin." They seemed relieved by my calm response. Sarah explained that she would accompany me to my desk, standard procedure for terminated employees. As I packed up my personal items under Sarah's watchful eye, I thought about my team. We had built something special together, not just code, but a culture of excellence and mutual respect. I had hired most of them personally, mentored them, fought for their raises and promotions. I sent a brief message to Alex, my senior developer, asking him to meet me for drinks that evening. He replied immediately, "What's going on? Why is Kevin suddenly in a meeting with Mark?" "I'll explain tonight. Bring Emily and Raj," I texted back, naming 2 other key members of my team. Sarah escorted me to the elevator, her discomfort evident. Before the doors closed, I turned to her. "You know this isn't about me not being a team player." She couldn't meet my eyes. "This decision came from above me," she said quietly. "It always does," I replied as the elevator doors closed between us. That evening, I sat at a corner table in the Rusty Nail, a bar far enough from the office to avoid running into other Meridian employees. Alex arrived first, his face tight with concern. "They fired you?" he asked without preamble, sliding into the booth across from me. I nodded. Not a team player, apparently. Emily and Raj arrived moments later, followed by 2 more developers from my team who had heard through the grapevine. Within an hour, 9 of my 12 team members were crowded around the table, drinks in hand, expressions ranging from shock to outrage. Kevin already scheduled a meeting to discuss the outsourcing transition, Emily said, her voice bitter. They didn't even wait until Monday. "Mark's been planning this," Raj added. "Last week he asked me how dependent our systems are on your personal oversight. I thought he was just doing some management assessment thing." I listened as they vented their frustrations, not just about my termination, but about the changes they'd seen since Mark joined the company. The increased pressure for unrealistic deadlines, the disregard for work-life balance, the constant threat of outsourcing. "So what are you going to do?" Alex finally asked me. I took a sip of my whiskey before answering. "I've been approached by Vertex Solutions twice in the last year. They're expanding their fintech division and looking for experienced teams." Vertex was a direct competitor to Meridian, but with a better reputation for how they treated their technical staff. Their CTO had reached out to me on LinkedIn several months ago, but I had declined to pursue the conversation out of loyalty to my team at Meridian. "You mean you're going to work for Vertex?" Emily asked. "I mean, I'm going to talk to them about building a new development department," I clarified. "They need a team, not just a manager." The table fell silent as my words sank in. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" Raj finally asked. I shrugged. "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying that if any of you find yourselves considering new opportunities, I might know of a place where your talents would be valued appropriately." Alex leaned forward. "You know we all have non-competes in our contracts. Non-competes that specifically prevent you from taking Meridian clients with you," I corrected. "There's nothing that prevents you from working for a competitor, especially if you're terminated without cause." By the end of the night, I had the personal email addresses of everyone at the table. I promised to update them after I spoke with Vertex. The following Monday, while my now former team was sitting through Kevin's first department meeting, I was having coffee with David Chen, the CTO of Vertex Solutions. "I was surprised to get your call," David said, stirring his latte. "Last time we spoke, you seemed firmly entrenched at Meridian." "Circumstances change," I replied. "Meridian's new leadership has different priorities." David nodded knowingly. "I heard they brought in Mark Lawson from NetCorp. He has a reputation for aggressive cost-cutting." "That's putting it mildly," I said. "But their loss could be your gain. You mentioned before that you were looking to build out your fintech division. I'm interested, but I have a larger proposition for you." David raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "What if, instead of just hiring me, you brought on a preformed team, developers who already work well together, who understand fintech requirements, and who could hit the ground running on day one?" "You're talking about your team from Meridian," David said, his interest clearly piqued. "I'm talking about top talent who might be looking for new opportunities very soon. People who value quality work and proper support from management. People who, hypothetically, might be updating their resumes as we speak." Or did you? David set down his coffee cup. "How many are we talking about?" "Potentially 9 developers, including 3 senior-level, 4 mid-level, and 2 junior developers who have tremendous potential." "That would be quite a coup," David mused. "And quite expensive." Less expensive than hiring piecemeal and waiting 6 months for them to learn to work together effectively, I countered, and considerably less expensive than the client satisfaction issues you'll avoid by having an experienced team from day one. By the end of our meeting, David had agreed to fast-track interviews for any of my former team members who were interested. He also offered me a position as Director of FinTech Development, a step up from my role at Meridian, with the understanding that I would help rebuild my team under the Vertex banner. Over the next 2 weeks, I maintained regular contact with my former colleagues. The situation at Meridian was deteriorating quickly. Kevin was struggling to manage the team while implementing Mark's outsourcing plan. Deadlines were slipping, client calls were becoming tense. One by one, my former team members interviewed at Vertex. David was impressed with each of them, just as I knew he would be. Offers were extended, competitive ones, with better benefits and more flexible work arrangements than Meridian provided. Within 3 weeks of my termination, Alex handed in his resignation at Meridian. Emily and Raj followed the next day. By the end of the month, 7 of my 12 team members had resigned, all citing professional growth opportunities as their reason for leaving. I later heard through a friend who still worked at Meridian that Mark was in a state of barely controlled panic. The outsourced developers were struggling to understand the code base without the institutional knowledge that had just walked out the door. 2 major clients were threatening to take their business elsewhere after missed deadlines and quality issues. Sarah from HR reached out to me directly, asking if I would consider coming back as a consultant to help with the transition. I politely declined, explaining that I was now fully committed to my new role at Vertex. 6 weeks after my termination, we launched our new department at Vertex. 9 of us, myself, and 8 former Meridian employees, sat around a conference table as David welcomed us officially to the company. "I've never seen a team integration happen this smoothly," he commented. "It's like you all just picked up your laptops and moved to a different building without missing a beat." We shared a knowing look among ourselves. That was exactly what had happened. Our first project at Vertex was to develop a new trading platform for a major financial institution, a client that, ironically, had been in talks with Meridian before their development team suddenly lost most of its senior talent. We delivered the first phase 3 weeks ahead of schedule. The client was impressed enough to sign a 3-year contract for ongoing development and support, a contract worth roughly twice what our entire team's annual salaries had been at Meridian. 4 months after my termination, I received a LinkedIn message from Kevin, who was still struggling as the development lead at Meridian. "Hey, I don't know if you've heard, but things are pretty rough here. Mark's outsourcing plan failed spectacularly. The offshore team delivered code so buggy that we've had to scrap most of it. 2 major clients have already jumped ship. I'm working 80-hour weeks trying to keep things afloat with a skeleton crew of new hires who barely understand our systems. Any chance you could put in a good word for me at Vertex? I should have stood up to Mark when he was planning to let you go." I didn't respond immediately. I forwarded the message to David with a note. "Might be worth considering. He's technically solid, if a bit too eager to please management." David's response came within minutes. "Your call. You've earned the right to build your team as you see fit." After thinking it over, I replied to Kevin, "Send me your resume. No promises, but we might have something opening up soon. For what it's worth, I don't blame you for what happened." It was true. I didn't blame Kevin. He was just another cog in the corporate machine, trying to survive. The real failure belonged to Mark and the Meridian leadership, who valued short-term cost-cutting over the accumulated talent and teamwork of dedicated employees. 6 months after my not-a-team-player termination, our group at Vertex had grown to 15 people. We had successfully delivered 2 major projects and had a pipeline of work stretching well into the next year. Our reputation in the industry was growing, and we were becoming known as the go-to team for complex fintech solutions. Meanwhile, Meridian's stock had dropped nearly 30% after 2 consecutive quarters of missed earnings targets. Their development department was still struggling to rebuild, now under its third manager since my departure. Through industry contacts, I heard that Markin had been quietly asked to resign, though the official announcement called it pursuing other opportunities. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. By labeling me not a team player, Meridian had actually highlighted the exact quality that made me valuable: my ability to build, lead, and inspire loyalty in a high-performing team. They had mistaken my willingness to challenge flawed decisions for an inability to collaborate, and it had cost them dearly. 1 year to the day after my termination, we held a small celebration in the Vertex office. David brought in champagne, and we toasted to our success. "I've been in this industry for 20 years, David said, raising his glass, "and I've never seen a more cohesive unit than this team. Here's to proving that being a team player isn't about blindly following orders. It's about standing up for your team, even when it's difficult." We clinked glasses, and I looked around at the faces of my colleagues, my team. They had followed me not out of obligation, but because we shared a vision of what good work looked like, how professionals should be treated, and what we could accomplish together. In the end, Meridian had been right about one thing. I wasn't their kind of team player. I was something much more valuable. I was a team builder. And in underestimating the bonds of respect and trust I had formed with my team, they hadn't just lost an employee. They had lost their future. The lesson is clear. True leadership isn't about titles or authority. It's about earning the kind of respect that makes people want to follow you, even without a corporate mandate. When companies forget this fundamental truth, they don't just lose employees. They lose entire teams. And sometimes, those teams go on to become their most formidable competition. If you've ever been in a similar situation, or just enjoyed this story of corporate karma, hit that subscribe button for more workplace stories and lessons learned the hard way. Remember, your value isn't determined by one company or one manager's perception. It's proven by the people who choose to work with you, regardless of where that work happens.